the Raza Foundation organizes in collaboration with the India International Center. We have had discussions, we have had talks, we have presentations, we have book releases, we have performances, etc. All that in which art matters. Today we have an interesting and an unusual event. Everybody knows there's a visual arts community. It's a loose, amorphous kind of a community. But nobody has ever thought that there should be some, not exactly celebration, but some kind of a documentation of this visual arts community. And that is what Ajay Shanker and Reid together have done and come out with a book in which, apart from artists, art critics, art organizers, art collectors, etc., and these are portraits. Some years ago, the Raza Foundation has partly funded the publication of a book of portraits in the Mughal miniature paintings by Nusrat Kazmi. I think the book is a very interesting documentation. And now here is portraits, and most of the people are still alive, no? Yeah, one of them perhaps.
No, quite a few are.
Although some of us are on the verge, but we are still there. So we have three speakers really. Mr. Rahman, who is a kind of emerged as a custodian of our visual memory. He keeps on coming out with photographs of people, events, happenings, which one might have forgotten, or which one might have not exactly paid attention to, apart from being a photographer and also an art activist. Reid is, I don't know what is he, except that I keep on running into him at all kinds of art spaces. So I imagine that although he is supposed to be from Australia, no? But he seems to be spending more time in India, and he could be called truly a Ghuspatia in the visual art world of India. And you better mind you, these days we are very keen to get rid of all the Ghuspatias. And Meera Menezes is an art writer, an art critic, a curator. She's a mentor to many young curators, etc. So we have these three of them. But before they talk about the book and whatever else they want to, we will perhaps release the book. All the four of you kindly do that.
Kunji, you also come here.
Yeah.
Come on. No.
Yeah.
Come. No.
You come.
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 Oh, Puji, you come here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will stand behind you.
Yes.
Okay, let's stand up a bit. Yeah.
Stand in front of me.
Yeah.
And you might have to open it,
Yes.
Properly done.
Yeah, we need to mess up. They just tell.
Kunji, where's your copy?
Mine is already open.
Take it off. Yes.
Yeah, we were going to get a messy. It doesn't
Yeah, I
matter.
will. So what do we do?
hold up the book.
The copies are available outside, and you may like to buy them and keep this book, which is very well produced. I am reminded of a theatrical performance in Paris directed by Arya Mushkin. And it is in the scenes, there used to be a lot of mess created in that scene. And then the actors will remove that kachra. So I thought that this is a very good, that history keeps on creating kachra, and it is the job of us to clean it up and have a. So here we are, we have removed the kachra now, and we can go ahead. So we start with Gary Reid, who in any case has been behind this project, so he'll tell us about the project, whatever. You speak from here or there?
If we can get the presentation. We should sit there so we can see it, Gary.
Yeah.
That's a better screen.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out on a cold winter's evening in Delhi. I'd like to thank for the generous support of Kiranada Museum of Arts and Akar Prakar and Punji Nut Arts and the Delhi Photo Company, who were the people responsible for allowing this book to actually be published. So the book started in 2018, so it's been a very long journey. So I've got 15 minutes to just give you a snapshot of a few things. You can see the cover of the book, and as Ashoka just mentioned before, it's available there, and it is very much a historical record. To just give a context, people might be thinking, including Ashok, why am I here? What am I doing in India and talking about Indian contemporary or modern art, etc.? So just to give a little snapshot, this is a photograph article in the Times of India, Bombay, 1990, Gallery Kemmort. And I had come to India in the late 80s, and I was inquisitive about the world of contemporary expression through the visual arts. And I met a man called Kiku Gandhi. He was highly enthusiastic about my appearance at Gallery Kemmort. And then within a year, I was able to co-curate a show to Australia of Indian contemporary artists, which is possibly the first show of Indian art in Australia of the contemporary expression. My issue was Australians had no idea that there was a world of Indian visual arts for the contemporary expression. So that's where I basically fitted in and have still maintained this connection through many people over 35 years, for those who are still alive from that period. So that's just giving a context. Another context is, how did I end up getting involved with Delhi Photo Company? So in 2008, I was at UNESCO, and I had been traveling with some friends in Madhya Pradesh. I didn't have a camera, they had a camera, and then they sent me the photographs from Australia to Delhi. And I'm thinking, on a disc, how am I going to get these printed? I was walking down Janpath and I saw Delhi Photo Company. And I thought, okay, I'll walk into this building. I have no idea if they'll have the equipment to do this. They did. They had a machine from France, and they told me, you print whatever you like from this disc and have a look at the quality. The quality was very impressive. And from there, I met Ajay Shanker, which was Ajay Shanker's father, and I started formulating a friendship, which then continued till today. It has still happened. So that is how I ended up being involved with this particular project. We need to give some context. to doing about the Delhi Photo Company itself, which has a very long history since 1937 in Janpath. And the person you see here is Ajay's grandfather, and he came to Delhi about 1920, 1921. He came from a village. He came to Delhi like a lot of migrants coming to Delhi, aspirations, determined to do something with their life, and ended up being an assistant in a photo studio in Kashmiri Gate. By 1937, he'd built up the confidence and the skills to think, I can now be a founding sort of person to set up a studio. And there is a demand for these photographs. So that is what happened in Janpath, that this establishment from 1937, so 100 years has passed since he came to Delhi and set up Delhi Photo Company. So here he is here, working in his office. This is a photograph from the original. The original site is still there in 78 Janpath, still operating, not fully as 100% as a studio, because it's also a restaurant, but it also is still running and still doing portraiture, which is a very dying art form. And in fact, you'd probably have to say there are very few people in this country, you could maybe count them on your hand, who have the capacity and the skill to capture what has been captured in this book. So in 1938, like a lot of establishments, Delhi Photo Company also set up a place in Missouri. And a lot of people were going to Missouri, whether it's the Nawabs, whether it's the Maharajas. Many people were going because portraiture was an iconic way of maintaining your visibility within your family. A lot of the very wealthy people had their own private photo albums of their children, of their wives, and put them together, but they were only private. Nobody else had access to these. So over a period of time, more people were coming involved and getting their studios portraits done. So in the very early days, under the British rule, many people would come to Delhi Photo Company. And you can see on the screen here, 2 people who came in to have their portraits taken. And so there was a lot of access and a lot of documentation from this era, from the 1930s onwards. Also, there was a lot of Indian people who were coming in. I mean, by this time in India, there was a huge proliferation of studio photography sites all over the country. Literally hundreds, maybe thousands, because Indian photography came to about 1840. By this time, people were making it an occupation, people were becoming professional, and studio portraiture was really part of the landscape, and people were adoring this type of style. In the late 1930s, we also had the American troops come to Delhi. So thousands of American troops would come into Janpath, Delhi Photo Company, and also have their portraits done. And other people would come and go, and they were their living memory of their time of being in India. So that the American barracks were in Janpath. I've actually written an unpublished book about Delhi Photo Company and the 3 generations of photographers. So this is where my insights about the history of Delhi has been built up. Now, the reputation really started to go wide. So the King of Nepal came to Delhi Photo Company. You had many Maharajas, Nawabs, all coming to Janpath or to Missouri. Multitudes. It's quite unbelievable the number of people. And the reputation was so striking around India, including Nepal, that people would queue up to get their portraits done. So it validated what was happening. Within India, amongst the political class, they were also coming. So we've got the presidents were also coming here to get their portraits done in Janpath, And so this became a pattern that presidents of India and other politicians would come to Janpath, Delhi Photo, to have their photographs captured. Now, Vijay Shanker, Ajay's father, his father had sent him to Germany. Germany had a very good reputation for doing portraiture. So he, in the late 1950s, went to Germany with no German language and became a master in doing portraits. So this is in Cologne, and his father is still alive at 94. So he really learnt a lot when he was there. He was there for 2 to 3 years, went originally for black and white, but also colour photography because it was starting to come into India. And people had to be aware that this was a new movement that was taking place. So Vijay Shanker went there to learn about this whole process. Many Indians, thousands of Indians, were coming into Janpath over the decades, and they continued to come in. And I could go on a long history just about the Delhi Photo Company, but I also wish to do a little bit about, this is the logo that was originally started in the 30s, and it's still the logo of Delhi Photo Company now, which has a website, etc., and people still come to get their portraits done. Not enough people, because I don't think people really fully understand, because it's a dying art form. So people may start thinking, well, this has been a very long journey, and it has. It started in 2018. Ajay, the photographer, highly skilled, Punjinath, who's sitting here at the moment, who is very well versed amongst the art community, both here and in South Asia, and myself. So we came together and came up with an idea. Why, let's try to capture some people within the visual arts community, because this is an important historical documentation. And as time has gone on, 5 of the people have passed away. Very prominent people have passed away, and they are also in the book. So through this process, we came up with a sketch of a draft, who would be involved. Then, of course, there was the snowballing effect of people would say, oh, I think you should get a photograph of this person, and put them into the book as well. So what was remarkable was the fact that very few people actually said no, because it's quite intimidating to have what they call maybe 12, 10 lights we're putting around you. You're not blinded, but you can't really see. And because of that, Ajay has that incredible skill regarding, I'm going to look at the person, I'm going to grasp their personality, the distinct characteristic traits, and this will then become iconic. And from this, inspired by the film noir approach, this essentially is seen in the book, and they are iconic. There's no doubting. If you look at the images, and because they're black and white, they've really, and the other speakers will talk about this. So the studio became mobile. It went to Calcutta, it went to Baroda, it went to Mumbai, it went to Delhi. People would pass through Delhi, and it went on and on and on and on. But we were very particular. We really wanted to make this a classical piece of art and give respect to studio portraiture, which will live on in the minds of all those who admire these people. We also wanted to make sure that in the eco-art world, you can't just have an artist without a gallery, and you can't have just an artist without some philanthropy, and you can't have an art without some museums. So we sort of thought, broaden the scope of all of this, and this will allow everyone to be contributing as a community, which is one of the reasons we thought the Indian family album, because it is not bloodlines, but we're all connected somehow through our common thoughts, our belief that we are creating new interpretations of the world that is around us, and artists are very good at creating new interpretation perspectives that we're not aware of. So Then we had COVID, and the whole thing collapsed. It sort of went silent for over 2 years, and nothing could happen. No one would open a door, naturally. And a lot of these were in people's homes, they were in museums, they were in some small, tiny places. The lighting had to be sort of cancelled out with curtains, etc. And so there was a lot of challenges. And then when COVID passed, it was time to reignite. Let's bring it back again. The show must go on. Many people, in all honesty, would have given up, because by this time it's 22 and we're still going on. And now today we have a product. We call it a book, and it's a photography book. And any of you could see outside and have a look at it. It's a memento. It's something that will live on, and we would like very much, hopefully, that this will live on, and the portraitures that have been captured and the people who are inside the book will also remain in your heart and in your history of knowledge of this period of India's evolution. So I will leave it at that, and I will let Ram continue on for the next section.
Glass of water. Yeah, we could just cue wine. Well, first thank the Raza Foundation and IIC for hosting this launch, which has come after a long, equally long journey. And also Ajay Shanker and Gary. Ajay, as you have realized, is a very timid, and I don't think he's even here. Oh, he is there. Maybe he's hiding under the chair. I got a call one day from Ajay, I think, or Gary, saying that, we're doing this book, can we come and do a picture of you? So I said, of course you can. So they came home to Civil Lines with all the paraphernalia. Now, I myself am a photographer, and he did the picture. Curtains were hung. There are lots of big windows in my place. So various bed sheets, bed covers, etc. had to be clipped all over the place. Anyway, the picture was done, and then Gary asked me, would I do a short essay on the photographs. Now, if you take a look at the photographs, first of all, as he said, they are black and white, which is harking back to the older tradition. And they're also, very strictly studio portraits. So they're done with a formal backdrop and very complicated lighting, which is not by flash. So these are all hot lights, and Ajay, manipulates them from the back, from the side, etc., depending on the sitter. And that was something I was a little familiar with. So what I did is I kind of put portrait photography in context of what he was doing, but specifically on artists. And I diverged a little bit. There's some dancers and actors also. I'll go through quickly as a little piece of my essay. And start, Ashokji mentioned an earlier book he had done, had helped produce on the Mughal artists. Now the great Mughal album, which is the Gulshan album in Tehran, I think it was carted off by Nadir Shah, was from Jahangir's period in 1610. These are the two very famous folios, which the Hashia have many of the famous Mughal artists. Now, the amazing thing about the Mughals is they were very particular about portraiture, not just of the emperors, but all the courtiers and even very ordinary people. And almost all their paintings are specific portraits, and they're amazing portraits. One thing I will tell you, the images I've got from this album are very rare, they're very high resolution. These look at the, and these, you know, I mean, you're seeing it on a scale, the actual sizes of these images of the figures is about that big. And you see on their boards, their names are written there. These are done by Daulat, who's one of the painters I'll show. Govardhan is one of the most famous, Bishan Das. But look at their faces and their colors. You know, it's a mix in the Mughal Karkhana or atelier. There were Hindus, there were Muslims, there were generational descendants. See the hands, see the equipment lying there, the brush holder, the shells in which they had their color. Remarkable portraits and portraits of artists, the very first in Indian art history. This is Bishan Das holding a little shell. That's Daulat, who painted all these images. And you see on his board, there's actually a face. You see the face being painted. And if you see the scale of this in the real painting, it's astonishing that something like this could have been painted by them. The outfits, etc., all, you know, obviously from life. And this is Abul Hassan. And look at his intensity and his hand. You know, remarkable portrait. So I started with this, putting the context. Now to get a little personal, I'm showing you this, which happens to be my mother, photographed in the 1950s by Ahmad Ali in Calcutta. Now this relates actually to what Ajay was doing, because look at the lighting in this. This is, she was a Bharatanatyam dancer, had just done her Arangetram. She would be 21 or 22 in these pictures. And now this is of course before digital, Photoshop, anything. So this combination that Ahmad Ali has done is very complicated because parts of the image are overlapping the other parts. And I think how he has done it, you know, I asked him and he said it was done by cutting the negatives. So the negatives were pieced together before making the print. And this is a silver gelatin print. Not an artist, but a dancer, artist in a broader sense. This is Zarina Hashmi, the eminent printmaker, done by Shunil Jana in a studio. Now his lighting, if you see, is very different. It's very soft, but there is a backlight on the background and a very soft light pretty much on her face. Very different from, you know, much more dramatic lighting that you'll see in Ajay's pictures. This is 1977 and this is from her estate. This was hanging in her room in New York. This is a portrait of Jamini Roy, a little more informal but also using lights. You see the shadow of the glasses, but there's no reflection in the glass. Also soft light. Jana liked a softer illumination for formal portraiture. These are actors and actresses by J.H. Thakkar, whose studio is still in Dadar in Bombay. Now the amazing thing about Thakkar is that these were done on a huge view camera, very large view camera, where the depth of field, you know, what remains in focus in the lens is very shallow. And you have to focus on a piece of glass upside down with a cloth. So he would pose these actors very carefully so they remained in focus, shut the lens, put the film in, take the picture, and to do this kind of work with a large camera is astonishing. And but these were theatrical pictures. You know, these are acting. The actors were acting, and he would take a little. Now, Dilip Kumar, not from any film or anything. These people would come to his studio and perform. And they would just cook up, he'd put a cigarette or hold a gun or, put a hat on and do something, together, creatively, bring clothes, borrow clothes. And you see the lighting here is, getting more complicated. A highlight on the head, half the face, and look at Dilip Kumar's expression, it's not a sort of romantic portrait, it's a character portrait. And this of Rajkumar, sort of mysterious, with those huge eyes. Again, look at the lighting. You see the light on the coat, on the hands, and the shadows, the shadow of the hat, etc. Almost like this is a story. Is this some sort of mysterious detective or something? You can read into these images. Now, into that same studio, many years later, 2002, 2003, the artist, Pushpamala, whose recent portrait is in the book, goes to Thakkar and does a series of Navarasa pictures. Now, a very interesting idea that she had is to do a contemporary visual interpretation, still interpretation of the Navarasa from our classical tradition, but done as modern women, using the same props that he used to use for the film pictures that he did in the 50s. So this was a collaboration between Thakkar and Pushpamala, done on film and printed in silver gelatin. Oh, what happened? It's got jammed.
What is MOMA?
Museum of Modern Art. Sorry, that's in-house art.
New York.
Okay, that's happening. Thank you. So I'm just going to show you a few so you get an idea of how she also changes the lighting depending on the particular mood that this is Sringara and Raudra. This whole set of the 9 has just been bought by the Museum of Modern Art. I think it's still on display over there. This is O.P. Sharma, who is also in the book. I recommended that they go. He's pretty old now in Bharati Artist Colony across the river. O.P. Sharma taught photography at Modern School for many, many, many years and was part of the whole pictorialist tradition of Indian photography. One of the many sort of traditions that existed, this photojournalism, studio photography, fashion, industrial, etc. Again, using intense, complicated lighting. And this is Kanwal Krishna, the famous artist, printmaker, who also taught at Modern School and was one of my teachers and teachers of many of the people who feature in the book. This young lady was a very hot babe in the early 60s and a student at Modern School. Her father was the principal of Modern School at the time, and she was used as a model by O.P. Sharma. So this is Geeta Kapoor, who subsequently became an eminent art theorist and art critic, and it is also in the book, but in her post-babe avatar, in the more serious intellectual. This is another picture of Geeta. Rorik. Many of these are not in the book, but I'm just showing them to you because it gives the context. Svetoslav Rorik, sorry. This is Ajay shooting in my little flat in Civil Lines, and you see the bedspreads, etc., blocking the windows and the backdrop, and the complicated, you know, the number of little lights that he'd set up. That's coming a bit closer to, you see the mess? And that was the end result. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Gary and Ram and of course the Raza Foundation for inviting me to speak today. While they've talked a bit about, you know, the history of studio photography, how this book came into being, they've asked me to talk a bit about the artists or the personalities in the book. And so I've chosen a few. I may not be able to talk about all of them because we probably run short of time. And so just to give you a bit of context, what really I really enjoyed about the book is that it's really spread across generations. So you have somebody like Krishan Khanna who just turned 100, and then you have, you know, really, I think the youngest maybe, not very sure, maybe Shilpa Gupta, Talur, that generation. And, you know, I was in a way lucky because I started my journey and got to know some of these senior artists when I was working for the Foundation of Indian Artists in Amsterdam in the early 90s. And after that, you know, I was the Delhi correspondent of the art magazine Art India, which then gave me the opportunity to really meet a number of these artists and, you know, have conversations with them. And so what I thought was maybe in some cases, I'm just going to read out some interviews that I'd done with them, sort of to bring them alive. And I'm going to start with Krishan. So he's really one of our finest modernist, you know, painters. And he was associated, of course, with the Progressive Artists group, which we know comprised of Souza and Gade, and then later Hussain, Ara and Bakre. And I got to know him really better when I was writing my book on Gaitonde. And then found him really a fount of knowledge. I mean, he had so many archival materials. You know, a lot of letters which then the Raza Foundation has also brought out in their publications. But it was really how he managed to keep all that knowledge, and then he just brought it out, and, you know, really we tapped into some of that. And so I just want to read out what many people don't know perhaps is that he started his career as a banker with the Grindlays Bank. And so he talks about an inaugural show of Gallery 59. And he said, I was in Madras and I had sent off pictures to Hussain and Bal. They met me at the airport. And the first thing you did was you did not go home and have a wash, but you wanted to see what pictures had come. That kind of enthusiasm. So we went straight to the Bhulabhai Desai Institute and to the gallery, and the pictures were all opened up. Raza's watercolors were priced at rupees 2,000, 99 and 100, which incensed Hussain. He got wild because Hussain had always been competitive. So he decided to price them at 5 rupees each. The canvases. So I said, at 5 rupees, I will buy the lot because I want to paint over them. The funny thing is that those were the very canvases that I had left behind, and Hussain had painted over them, and nobody minded in those days. And what actually Hussain did, which later, you know, we found out, was Krishan Khanna had done a painting of Salman Rushdie's mother, which Salman Rushdie's father, I don't think, then bought that painting ultimately, and then Hussain painted over it. And when Salman Rushdie got to know the story years later, he was obsessed about what had happened, and that feeds into his book, The Moor's Last Sigh, as this underlayer. You know, so this was, I thought, one story which, you know, was interesting. Maybe go to the... I need some more light. Is that possible to put some more light here?
Put the phone light.
Okay, no, just here. I think otherwise we can't see this. Okay, we don't have a spot. Okay. And it was because of Krishan's suggestion that I went to interview Akbar Padamsee in 2011. And he had a number of stories to tell as well. I'll manage. And I think one of the important things that he did was really to start the vision workshop. And now if you see a lot of works that Nalini Malani, for instance, has been showing recently, it was really based, oh, thanks, Ram.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Was based on that vision workshop that he started. And he said, I got the Nehru Fellowship. And it was a fellowship to start a workshop for printing and filmmaking. I said, there's no such place, and I'd like to start it. Nikki, who was Padamsee's brother, said, why don't you come to Bombay and do it? I had an apartment, and I bought a neighboring apartment for 40,000 rupees. I was actually the owner of the building, but I paid 40,000 rupees pagri to take my own flat back. And at that time, the tenants were considered owners. So I ordered an etching press. I told the Sardarji how to make it, and based on my experiment in Southset, he told me, I will make it, but it will not print. But I told him, make it. We took an etching. He was shocked that it had all worked out for 3,000 rupees. Then many people commissioned him. The other incident that Padamsee told me, and I think maybe some of you are familiar with it, was about his arrest. He'd come back from Paris, and he made a work on the topic of lovers. This was at the Jahangir Art Gallery. And he was going to be charged under section 292, but he pleaded his case in front of the High Court. And it was really a landmark decision, because after that, artists are allowed to exhibit nudes in a gallery show. So I think that was another contribution by Padamsee. We have A. Ramachandran, who died in 2024. So I think after you all shot him, I mean, you were lucky to get him. Not shot him this way, but, in a photo shoot at the age of 89, he has a credit, to his credit, the Padma Bhushan. He was the chairperson of the Kerala Lalit Kala Academy. He was born in Tiruvananthapuram. But what happened was his shift from the modern style to works inspired by the murals of Kerala and mythology was seen by much of the art world as a betrayal of the modernist movement. And so what he told me was, he said, the vernacular quality of my work is a very significant factor which makes me different from most of the other artists and makes me rejected by most of the art critics or art connoisseurs simply because I'm not following Picasso or Matisse or Francis Bacon. To me, modern art is not something that has to be handed over by someone to me. But modernity is something which we have to evolve in our own way. In the Indian context, we were under colonial rule for almost 200 years, and a system was created that cut us off from our own visual culture. It's an important point that nobody has thought about. And that's why you see his turn, if you look at his paintings, are very, very rooted in the vernacular. Ibrahim Al-Qazi and Amal, I'm going to probably just skip over them, but I also had a chance to meet Ibrahim Al-Qazi and interview him again for the Gaitonde book. And I think while he didn't have much to do with Gaitonde, what was very interesting were the stories he told me about the Bhulabhai Desai Institute in Bombay and all the sort of plays that he held and the coming together of so many bright minds. Whether it was Gaitonde there painting, whether it was Davyarwala, whether it was Hussain, Tayyab, everybody. It was a wonderfully creative, and even actors in Bombay who came together. I mean, of course, he's the driving force also behind Art Heritage, along with his wife Roshan. And, you see his daughter Amal here, in this work. And it's a very interesting portrait. Gary was just telling me a story about it, the way the two have been juxtaposed, father and daughter. Arpita Singh, really she's one of India's foremost painters. She's best known for her playful narrative style, which really has very quixotic juxtapositions of flora and fauna with a cast of human characters. And there's really a wealth of detail. I mean, with Arpita, it's been a thing. I knew her as an artist, but also the mother of a friend of mine, who was Anjum Singh, right? So there was a different relationship, and I think that sort of relationship is also, I think, there with both Madhavi and Manu. They were, they're well-known artists in their own right, but also the the parents of Manisha Parekh. Madhavi, of course, Manu has done a lot to also promote Madhavi's career. I mean, he introduced her to clay, the artist clay, and she developed a very unique style. It sometimes is called folksy traditional, but really with a very modernist sensibility. And I remember when go back to her. She, what she told me in one of my interviews with her is that I have never forgotten the sights and sounds of my village. I carry them with me everywhere. And although they are often combined with elements I've imbibed living in the city, they still endure. And that's why you have a kind of very childlike naivete and a sense of wonder, that permeate her works. And Manu Parekh has really been so supportive of her through all the years, encouraging her, even though he, had gone to the JJ and had a formal arts education. Madhavi didn't, but he really encouraged her to follow her path, and that's why you kind of see that she's really got now this modernist sensibility with a very sophisticated handling of color and material. Nilima, and I think I'm going to skip over just now, and then I come to Pushpamala, and I think, so you can see two very different styles, what you had in the book, and then you have Pushpa as done by Ajay. Of course she's a very, very well-known performance artist. Ram has already spoken about her. She takes on different forms, with a bandit queen, or different kinds of personas, maybe Marie Antoinette. She's really quite a maverick in that sense. Yeah, Bharti Kher, of course, very well known, spends her time between, I think, London and Delhi. I met her also very, very early on in her career. And one of the things that she said to me was, her trademark is the bindi. And I asked her why. And she was just fascinated by all the stories that were there about, the third eye of Shiva, which is there. But what she also found very interesting was that some of the bindis, are very squiggly. And she said it was almost like a sperm. And she said, what is the sperm doing on the forehead of an Indian woman? That was one thing. The other thing was that she always brings together women with animals. And it's her interest in, say, the natural world, which sort of creates this whole hybrid that she has, and it's also maybe points also to ourselves. I mean, we as people, we have multiple identities. Bharti definitely moving between, London as well as India. She just sort of felt she was both an insider as well as an outsider, and these multiple selves are reflected in her work. Sudarshan Shetty, very well-known sculptor based out of Bombay, also known for initially early in his career, he sort of made these very large works, and he said, my earlier shows had pieces that were big, for those times at least. Now everyone makes big things. I was interested in the kind of aesthetic aspect, but conceptually. It was about building up a world that collapses under the weight of its own spectacle. Here too, I'm playing with that. The installation is so grand in some ways, but it's also something that is imminently collapsible. And then, with Sudarshan, he made works really in different kinds of materials. And he said, these formal choices are very essential to the show. Every piece of material that is used here is recycled. So if you go to Sudarshan's workshop, he has, almost a go down. He collects all these old doors and, parts of buildings, etc., which he then recycles and puts together in his work. And so he said every piece of material that's used here is recycled and is a mix of styles, from colonial-looking pillars, Hindu or Jain pillars, to a dome that is essentially Islamic. Everything is mixed up as a way of including unknown stories. The elements are old, but it's all done in my own idiosyncratic design. I'm interested in playing with the notion of what is old, what is new, what is real, what is not, and what does structure mean, and who would reside in it, or what does it mean as an art object, and who would buy that. Jitish, of course, Jitish also very, very well-known artist based in Bombay. His work really has been about an interplay between the earthly and the celestial, the material and the spiritual, and that's been a recurring motif in his career. And several of his early works were really bear the mark of his native city, Mumbai, which shows a city bursting at the seams with its crush of people, traffic, bullock carts, auto rickshaws, and a laborer-pulled handcart all crammed into one. And I think you can see this daily struggle for space and survival, which manifests itself in Jitish's work, as well as his empathy for the marginalized and dispossessed, which is a feature. Shilpa Gupta, I don't know, those of you who went to Kochi for the Biennale would have seen her work, but also in Bikaner House. She's worked a lot with borders. Whether it is the enclaves that used to be there of Bangladesh in India and vice versa, but also she does talk a lot about censorship. And I think one of her, I'd like to talk about one of her installations which she did at Bikaner House, which is called Listening Air, which had, all these microphones and dim bulbs which move in a slow dance, with songs in different tongues. And for instance, she used the familiar Hum Dekhenge, penned by the Pakistani poet Faiz Ahmad Faiz, which crossed borders to become a rallying cry and a symbol of hope among the Indian student protesters in 2019. And also in the mix were Bella Ciao, which is a song in tribute to the anti-fascist partisans of the 1940s, which became an anthem of resistance during the farmers' sit-down protests in Delhi in 2020. So you can see how she puts together these protest movements from across the world into this installation. And it was also, for me, reminiscent of an earlier work of hers, which is For In Your Tongue I Cannot Fit, on 100 jailed poets, which featured the works of poets who were imprisoned either for their poetry or politics. Meetu Sen, who's currently got a show in Kemold in Bombay. One interesting thing I just wanted to narrate about Meetu was really a project that she did at Coach, which was called the I Love Meetu. So it was really at the height of her popularity, or the market, let's put it, the market boom. Meetu decided that she was not wanting her work to become like a commodity, and she put out this call to say, write me a letter of love and I will give you an artwork. And that's what really happened. So I remember I wrote it, my little son wrote it, and sure enough, just a personal anecdote, my son, when he was very small, Meetu had this wonderful butterfly ring. And my son was fascinated with it. And so when Meetu gave him a work, she did a butterfly in it. So it was this very personal thing. And for me, I think it was a strand of her hair which she embroidered. So it was really speaking against commodification, speaking against the market, which really marks her. Also in her performances, she can be quite a maverick. There was a performance that she did in New York, or there was an open sort of studio that she did in New York. And she didn't turn up for her opening. Instead, she caught the bus and went around the city. And, so just the kind of maverick thing that, an artist would do. So that's...
Also just now recently in her show in Kemold, the artist walked through.
Yeah, she was not there.
She was not in the room, she was on speaker.
Yeah.
So she directed everyone without seeing them.
So very... Talur I've always found very interesting the way, and especially now I think, when many of us are a bit skeptical about AI, Talur actually courts AI. What he does is he's built his own, AI agent, and then he sort of has fed the AI agent all his kind of works, and then tells the agent to create something Talu-esque, and then looks at it and then tries to sort of, whatever the agent comes out with, he then tries and does something with it. So he's one of the few artists who doesn't, kind of think AI is taking away agency from a creative practitioner or AI will take over our work, but really engaging actively and looking at its possibilities, which I find very interesting. And I think finally I just want to come to Rux Media Collective. It's very interesting that you have a trio in the book with Jibesh Bakchi, Monica Narula, and Shuddhaprata Sengupta. All of them, are curators, performers, artists, and I would also say very, very fine thinkers, And I think a lot of their work also has to do with the notion of time. And so on that note, I'm going to end because I think I've pretty much run out of time. Thank you.
Gary? Oh, we sit down. Turn off my flashlight. Yeah, that's good.
Well, you have heard something about the artist, you have seen some of the portraits, and you have heard about the context, etc. Now, if you have any questions, brief ones, sharp ones, go ahead, and the three of them are there to answer. The first one should be a person who is courageous to dare it.
Is yourself.
Yeah.
No. Yes, you? Take the mic, please.
Hi, I wanted to ask why are all the photographs only in black and white? Because color is a very interesting medium, also very creative. And can we see Geeta Kapoor as a babe again, that photograph?
Oh, it'll cost you.
Oh, okay.
Take the mic.
The black and white.
Yeah. Well, Ajay is here.
Yeah.
He can talk about that.
No, it's like a tribute to my family. It's since 1937 when the color photography was not there. It's kind of tribute to them.
What about after that?
He has added color. Just to start with. Okay. First thing.
Also, how do you turn this on?
Press.
Press.
And the Sunil Jana collection is with KNME or with you?
No, the work I showed, Sunil Jana's collection is with his son in Berkeley. And only my mother's picture is with me. Zarina is in her estate in New York. And O.P. Sharma's prints are with him in Bharati Artist Colony. Also, just a little aside on the Gulshan album, the images I showed you, they're very high resolution actually, which have not been seen in such resolution before because they've come out from Tehran. And the reason I've had access to them, there's a little bit of good news, is this legendary album is about to be published for the first time. And the whole historical art world is waiting for it, but it's going to come soon.
Yes. Just a minute.
Portrait also.
Which one?
Take it.
Will that also include some well-known emperor's portrait also that the collection you have?
Yes, it's a huge album of nature paintings. Jahangir was one of the great connoisseurs. In fact, in the folio I showed you, under the poetry, there's a little handwriting on the golden border of the text, and that's Jahangir's own handwriting when he was drunk. There are other writing of him when he's not drunk in other parts of the pages, but that's how personal these albums are.
Did you cede any territory to the British then?
No.
Yeah, here, just a minute.
Yeah, whatever. He was high on whatever.
Yes, go ahead.
So I have an interview with Krishan Khanna and his paintings and his explaining the paintings, and it's up on YouTube. You can see it. It's an hour-long I wouldn't call it a documentary, but what. So you can have that, and you can see that, whoever wants to. And his wife taught me in school. What I want to say is that, of course, I mean, these portraits are wonderful, and it's certainly a contribution. But I do want to say that Kamal Kishan, he taught me in modern school. He was always drinking. He was in class. He had his bottle there. He had his glass there. And he was drunk. And his wife was really so upset about it that she literally, her face, she was a well-known artist, her face drooped, okay? And if any of us commented, I think we were suitably punished, okay? Okay? At least I was. Huh? So I've always been punished all my life because I'm a bit outspoken for this system. But what I want to say is that if we could have, if you really want to go into the artists, I think portraits are a beginning. But if you get them when they're working, when they're in different, it's completely different. So what I'm trying to say is that I've had the privilege and honor of meeting some of these artists. I met your mother in New York. And what I'm trying to say is that we can go further than portraits. I don't think that portraits are the only way to be iconic. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
But nobody has said that that is all.
It's another genre. It's a genre. It's one
Yeah.
genre among many.
Yeah, here, just a minute.
I think this question is for Ajay. If I may ask, do they have any connections with Matas, or are they from the same time?
No, Mata came to Delhi after independence.
Okay.
So we, 1937, we were earlier in Delhi, but they were in Kashmir before.
Okay.
So they started 100 years for them. In 1920s they started.
And they started in Delhi?
47 after.
But actually, because of that question, both of them in Connaught Place,
Yeah.
and both of them great photo studios. So that's amazing that Delhi had, really first class image makers.
We had Kinsey also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kinsey
Kinsey.
Brothers, and there was one at Kashmiri Gate
Yeah, photo studio.
at my gate actually on civil lines.
Because
AR that's right. So that's an amazing thing in one city to have had such a set of fantastic.
one in Zambudpur,
Yeah, but that was much later.
Much later.
Yeah, but your question of the question of black and white and why portraits like this. That's the whole reason is he's putting the new work in the lineage of the earlier work, but doing it with artists and not with politicians, not with public figures like that. And I think for this kind of a book, you see, people have done books of artists in their studios, which have been in color, etc. But that's a very different, way of looking at an artist. This is a much more formal, in a sense. The word iconic is kind of a easy word, but it's sort of placing their images in a historical tradition also as history.
I also feel that black and white pictures capture moods very well. You're able to see a lot, the eyes, the expression. So I think they capture the moods much, much better. And colored pictures usually, you get carried away a little bit about the color combination and all of that. In black and white, it's very much there, and the eyes speak a lot, because that is what I feel, and so that is what I even at home when we have the black and white, it captures the mood and all much better. Maybe.
Yeah.
And portraits, definitely I feel black and white is a better medium, is what I
The one regarding Mithu Sen that Meera spoke about, I was with her in Bombay just 2 days ago, talking about the launch of this book. She couldn't be here because she has a show there. She said, "Oh, they've made me look so white. I'm so black."
I just wanted to ask about What's the, from an artistic stylistic perspective, how do you execute technically to have the portrait accurately reflect the disposition of the subject? Does that make sense?
That's for Ajay, I think. Ajay, you better come up here, you know.
Yeah. That's why we take the mic here.
Yeah, that's working.
It's just to study the face, and you have to see the angles, the lights, and leave them alone. You should not be there in front of them. Let them, that spotlight, is their time for thinking, and you have to capture that. So they have to be left alone. If you're on their head, it's very difficult.
Well, with that, I think we come to an end. Since I also, yeah, please.
Yeah, I noticed your Sunil Jana works were all silver gelatine. And I've attended all your Sunil Jana talks. It's beautiful, his photographs are amazing, particularly the ones you showed of the Bengal famine in '42 and the exhibition you had at Ojas Art Gallery. Tell me, what is the silver gelatine technique, please? That it seems to me that's what makes his photographs so special.
Do you want to?
No, you go ahead. It's a printing.
Well, it's silver gelatin now, is oddly termed analog as opposed to digital, which is a strange term. But it was basically the older, the 100-year tradition of film, which was celluloid, but it had a silver base, which captured the light through chemical processing. Similarly, the paper that you printed on had a white base, but had a silver salt coating, which would respond to the light coming through the negative. Now the thing with, as opposed to a digital print now, they've become pretty good at almost matching what the old silver gelatin used to be. But there's a bit of depth, actual physical depth in the silver gelatin print. And the sort of tonality of grays, the richness that you get is very difficult to get in digital printing. If you see the same image printed digitally and in older silver gelatin, you'll see it's very subtle, but it's quite strong. So silver gelatin was the old method, and of course the Jana prints were done. I think the last was probably, what I showed was Zarina 77. His work goes from the 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. As with Ahmad Ali, the picture of my mother is also silver gelatin print and very rich in its tonality. And some of the O.P. Sharma, the early pictures that he did, including the hot babe picture that you wanted to see again, those are silver gelatin prints because they were done at a time, he built an amazing darkroom in Modern School and also a huge one where he taught for many, many years in Triveni. And he's taught hundreds of young photographers. And that darkroom is still there in the basement of Triveni with many, many enlargers.
He had a show at Triveni last time.
Yeah.
Well, friends, we now come to the end of the evening. I also figure in this book.
Yes, I know.
And when I saw the portrait, I was quite amazed. This is me. So if a photograph tells you that this is you, then it has attained a certain level of art, which is what tells us who are you. So thank you very much.
That's the...
Thank you very much for being here. Next month, on the 19th of February, a day after Krishna Sobti's birthday, we'll have a dramatic reading of some of her works. Perhaps a part of her famous long story, Ay Ladki, and 2 pieces from her writings about others called Hum Hashmat. So if you are interested, almost the same time, the same samosa, the same chutney, except that there will be also a Pathan to keep a watch that you don't walk away. Thank you very much.
Is that Shah Rukh Khan? And also it's we're very close to Ashok Vajpayee's birthday.
Yeah. Maybe to Ajay. Okay, this is for you. Maybe Ajay, please.
No, both. No, that's not.
Oh God.
It's the same thing.
Thank you.